Hi everyone, welcome to the 5th edition of our community venue learning series. Today's topic is how to attract, engage and retain committee members. And this is a subject that we chose because firstly it was voted at our last session, but it's also something that we hear a lot about in conversations with community venues. This year and last year, I ran a piece of work with Auckland Council, helping create some strategic plans for the rural halls. And as part of those conversations with all those committees, some of the topics that we're going to talk about today were a universal challenge for those committee members. In particular, some of the challenges that literally came up, I think, at all of the 10 or so halls that I talked to were, how do we get new people to join our committee? People seem to have a lot less time these days to do community-focused stuff, to do volunteer work. People seem pretty reticent to commit to being on a committee because they don't want to let people down. Another hot topic that came up in those dialogues is how do you engage the wider community to actually be involved in your committee in your hall, especially when communities around more traditional venues, especially I would say churches and rural halls, have changed an awful lot since they were first instigated. So, we particularly out in venues in rural areas, there's a movement of a change in demographics around that hall. So it's less the original families that were there, and it's more sort of people doing lifestyle blocks, people commuting, and people just have less of a connection with the community venues, and therefore it can be harder to get people engaged in what you're doing. The other major theme that we've seen pop up in these conversations, which I'm sure will come up today, is also that people can get very engaged in a committee or an organisation when it looks like something is going to get taken away from them. So never waste a good crisis is a good phrase to use. So a lot of the hall committees I spoke to last year, a lot of people had ended up on those committees because it looked as if the hall might get taken back to council, or they might not have enough funding to run it, and there needed to be something to happen to save that venue. So that's another topic that's come up. All things that we're going to talk about with our panelists today. So we are super lucky to have a lady named Jaquie Happ, who was on a committee for a community venue in Dunsborough. And we're also going to be joined by Jeremy Hurst, who aside from his work at SpacetoCo, has also led or been part of an organisation that is trying to raise awareness about a particular neighbourhood issue in their area, and as part of that has had to activate a huge cross-section of his local community to do that. So we're going to be running through a number of different topics and questions, and I think you're just going to get heaps and heaps of insight from those conversations. So without further ado, what we're going to cover today in the session is we're just going to do a quick icebreaker. So our team, Shana, will lead us in that, just so we can get to know the people on the call. And before we go into the icebreaker, these sessions are super collaborative, and we really love to hear your questions, your advice, your insights, anything that resonates with you. Feel free to drop anything into the chat. Feel free to turn your camera on or your microphone on, and join in the discussion, participate. It really does help the others who are watching this sort of learn from each other. The whole purpose of these learning series is to share insights and share knowledge between people in a similar situation at all different community venues across Australia and New Zealand. So we're just going to hand over to Shana for the icebreaker. And so a big hello to everyone that's joined us, but also a huge hello to everyone that's watching this after the events happened. We get a lot of people watching watching the recording, so hello to you too. Shana.
Hi, everybody. My name is Shana, one of the inbound content marketers at SpacetoCo. I just want to run through a quick little icebreaker. If you hear some background noise, that's just Carmela, who's also the inbound content marketer here, and our daughters having a little bit of a play. But speaking of a bit of play, we want to hear from you. So you guys can see that there's a chat box on the right-hand just side of your Livestorm dashboard. So if you could type in your name, where you're from, and we've got a cool little icebreaker here. We're going to fill in the blanks. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this meme. There was a really funny YouTube video of this lady. I think her name was like Sweet Little Brown. Or, do you know her name? There was something. Anyway, so her tagline was "Ain't nobody got time for that." And so what do you guys not have time for in your community venues? So we've got blank, ain't nobody got time for that. So it'd be really fun to see what you guys have any ideas. I've got some examples. So if you don't quite understand, so we are obviously an online booking system, and we think we're pretty cool too. So we've got, for us, manual bookings, ain't nobody got time for that. And that's from us. Or credit notes, ain't nobody got time for that. Waiting 3 weeks to get my bond money, ain't nobody got time for that. What else do we have here? Cancel my booking in 2021, got refunded in 2023. Ain't nobody got time for that. That's a very relevant one. And then can't make a booking outside of office hours. Ain't nobody got time for that. So Carmela says here, paper invoices. Ain't nobody got time for that. And Sana from Somerville Presbyterian Church in Remuera. Hello, kia ora. Painting office walls. Ain't nobody got time for that. That's true. It's a good one. That's a good one. Do you have any ones, Elle?
I think one of the things that comes up a lot is going back and forth on availability questions. Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah, same as Tegan. I need to answer inquiries, answering the same question over and over again. Do you allow alcohol? Yes, we put it in the description.
Yeah, or even just if they ask questions when it's on your website and it's just readily available, and you're like, ain't nobody got time for that. Like, I don't need to copy and paste this and then email it to you as well. So Connie, kia ora, pestering our landlord for basic maintenance. For real. Ain't nobody got time for that. And their dream is to buy our venue one day. That's really cool. How long away are you guys from that goal? Is that like a recent goal? Is that yeah, that'd be really awesome.
Oh, I know so many venues with that goal, because it just, imagine if you could own it and do what you wanted and not have to, have all those restrictions. Oh, I love that, Connie. Years, bring me your bookings.
Pauline, do you have tables and chairs? Ain't nobody got time for that. That's so good. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for sharing. These are absolutely great. All right, we have just in the nick of time had we were waiting for Jeremy to get into the call because he was having some connection issues. But luckily Jeremy is here and Jaquie is here. So if I could ask you to turn on your microphone and your video and give us a wave, that would be great. And then we'll jump straight into the fireside chat. And just a massive thank you, especially to Jaquie, for being here and sharing your knowledge. So if you need to know how to turn on the microphone and camera, it's at the bottom.
Am I on?
Yay! Hi, Jaquie.
Daylight savings. I didn't realize.
Oh no! Oh, it catches me out too.
Oh dear, sorry, Shana.
All good, Jaquie. That's
All
awesome.
good.
No worries. Thank you for being here. And you, Jay. Thank you.
My absolute pleasure.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's kick off. And firstly, would love Jaquie for you to go first here. If you could just introduce yourself and the committee or committees that you're on, your role and the purpose of your organisation.
So I live in between sunny Dunsborough and Bustleton. So that's in Western Australia, 3 hours behind everyone else at the moment, it would seem. I'm the president of the Dunsborough Progress Association and have been for way too long and need to work on succession planning. Through that, I've been running the Dunsborough Hall, which is how I've come across SpacetoCo. I'm also the vice president of the Margaret River Region Open Studios, which is a huge open studio celebration for 2 weeks, which just finished. There's about $2 million worth of art sold in that time. Amazing. So come over. I am also a volunteer for Cinefest Oz, so I get to look up. That's a huge film festival that we have over here. And that is, this year I got to look after Richard Roxburgh, not name dropping or anything. And I'm the vice president of Building Bustleton Town Team, which is a place activation group in the city of Bustleton. So the Progress Association in Dunsborough, we've been running since 1934, I believe it is. And we run the hall. We do the civic events like the carols, Anzac Day, Australia Day, and we also run a big festival that's been going for over 20 years down on the foreshore for 3 days, which includes concerts and workshops and a big outdoor sculpture exhibition, which is Sculptures by the Bay, and sculptures inside as well. That's it. And I work for the City of Bustleton, which is where I am right now.
Wow. So that's heaps going on. And what a contribution to your community. That's an incredible list of things that you just think, like, if those things didn't exist, you know, that's how much less rich would people's lives be in that area.
I did it for the kids at the beginning.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jaquie. And Jeremy, do you want to just say a few words about the organisation that you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. And Jaquie, awesome to see you, have you on the call. And I'm always in awe of all the things you tell us you're doing. So outside of my work, I'm involved in a community group that's probably formed as a result of reacting against something. So the group is called Save Perth Hills. I live in the Perth Hills in Western Australia, just outside of the Perth CBD, sort of a bit of a peri-urban area, and a lot of semi-rural lifestyle out here. And basically, the issue that's galvanised the community here has been a property developer in conjunction with the landowner, the Anglican Church, seeking to put 4,000 people essentially into a sheep paddock, and it would be the biggest sort of urban subdivision east of the metro area in quite an extreme bushfire zone. I live in the Shire of Mundaring, and we have you know, the good fortune to live in an extreme, one of Australia's most extreme bushfire regions. I think Shire of Mundaring is rated 4th nationally in Australia for that. There's been a whole host of issues surrounding this project and the different versions of it that preceded it. And so Save Perth Hills Incorporated is actually being, as a group, has been going for over 30 years. And so this concept started in the 90s. I'm lucky enough to sit in the chair position at the moment, and have done, this will be coming up to the 3rd AGM. So yeah, what a journey it's been. And yeah, I look forward to just unpacking some of the questions I know Elle's got for everybody. So
thank you so much, Jay. And yeah, it's nice to have a sort of contrasting organisation around, as you say, something that's rallying against something, not just sort of promoting different things. So we're here to talk about all things committees. So we're just going to dive in, and for this one, sort of, no detail is too much detail, because I know that the people watching this are looking and wanting to learn about what they can do and take home for their own committees. So Jaquie, if you could tell us, I think maybe for the Dunsborough Progress Association, tell us a bit more about that committee. How many people are on it? How is it structured? Do you have set roles and responsibilities, and just a little bit more about how that committee operates?
That's something that we're kind of working on at the moment. So we have an average of about 7 or 8 people, usually, mostly over the age of 40, but when I first started, it was all the old people, and it took them about 3 or 4 years to actually release us and allow us to make our own decisions. That was 20 years ago. God. Anyway, this year we actually have 10 committee members. So we even had to have a vote, which we haven't had to do for years. The structure, we have the executive, but we meet once a month, and our meetings can get a little bit long, and so we're trying to rein that in and have less talking going on. We do have subcommittees, but part of that is also auspicing other groups as well. So we auspice the Historical Society and Dunsborough 2030, which is our planning arm. So we sort of set up a subcommittee to look after the planning, which Jeremy is the same sort of thing. We've got land under investigation that will do exactly what you're talking about. So we're trying to get on top of that before it even before it's a thought. It is a thought, and now it's like being on the front foot rather than trying to be doing something to prevent it rather than react against it. Mm. But I think it's a losing battle, unfortunately. At the beginning, it's about talking to the landowner, and if the landowners aren't interested in selling, you're fine for a period of time. But if the landowners are, someone's going to buy it.
Mm. Jaquie, when just a couple of questions. So you mentioned when you first joined, it took a while for you to be able to participate fully because of the incumbent committee members. Do you have any advice for committees on welcoming new people, welcoming a younger generation, and attracting a younger generation to participate, and how you can kind of make them feel a sense of belonging in that committee?
I think it's first of all asking them personally. Through my work, I've been I work with lots of really active and interested people, but they are quite often new to town, so they don't know about groups. So when I come across someone who I think might be a fit for any group that I belong to, I'll sort of say, hey, have you heard about this group? This is what they do. Is that something that you might be interested in? We meet da-da-da-da-da, and then remember to ask them to come along. Mm-hmm. That's probably the main thing. But it's really not putting pressure on people. And also there's a lot of people who are quite happy to help on the day, mm-hmm. or in the lead up to a day. So work on a project, let's say, if it's an event or a project, to work. They know this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the markets for this festival. That's my obligation. That's all I have to do.
I think that's such a good point, and it's a really good idea to identify what are the roles and responsibilities that require you to be on a committee, and what just is a one-off thing that someone can get involved with but not make a long-term commitment. Because I think one of the barriers that people have to joining a committee is I'm not sure I can commit for the next few years to do this, but I really want to help out. And actually being involved in a project, getting to know the people, can be a bit of a gateway to sort of showing them, the commitment isn't as big as maybe you think it is, or how can we involve you further, and to just build those connections with new people in the community. So yeah, having a tidy up day or a market or something like that is just a great way to sort of get people involved who don't want to have a formal role.
Yes, definitely.
Jay, how about you? How many people are on your committee and how are you organised?
We have about 10 committee members. And then there's sort of like the core inner circle who comes to every meeting, and the office bearers. So we have a chair, a vice chair, we have a treasurer and a secretary, and we have ordinary committee members as well. Meetings are shared across each other's houses. Often, first Tuesday of the month, we have a meeting here. It goes for a couple of hours. It's important that we keep to time because everybody is volunteer. You got to remember everyone's volunteering. They're not being paid for their time, and so how you sort of balance that with this notion of turning up and contributing is just an ongoing thing. We all have very, very, very busy lives, and Jaquie, I see you smile at that point because you've just got to maintain a real flexibility. And I actually didn't really want to be the chair, for example. I was too busy to be the chair. But the committee
you should be the vice chair.
Yeah. Well, the committee said, no, we want you to be the chair when the previous chairperson resigned. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do it, but I have to have everybody else help because my full-time work is so all-consuming right now. And yes, I can be the chair, but at the same time, we need everyone to play their part, because over the years we've seen the chair is the one person who takes all the initiative. They make all the phone calls, they write all the letters, and I was like, I cannot physically do that. And so it was quite a good thing that I did that, because sort of resisted it and explained, put the boundaries up, because it's meant that all the letter writing is handled by the deputy chair. All the meeting organisation and checking of things comes through myself. All of the market stalls, that's managed through one of our committee members. Our treasurer helps with all the finances. And so we've got quite good, naturally delineated roles, but the leadership structure is very flat. And I think that actually suits committees really well. If you've got a really strong authoritarian figure at the top who's dictating top down, I think you can put people offside who are doing this work for free, willingly for free. So the other really core, sorry.
Oh no, carry on.
Just the other really core point is when you're attracting committee people, there's a few layers to that. So one of the core things I'll say about our group is our cause is incredibly clear. And we get other issues come to us because we're called Save Perth Hills. So anyone who lives in the Perth Hills says, we've got this issue over here. And we're like, yeah, we can't assist you with that issue. We're working on these. This is our core issue, and these issues are around that. But this one is way left of center, and we just can't. But here is what we recommend you do. Here are the people you speak to. Yeah. And making sure that you don't get distracted by that core purpose of why you exist is really, really critical. And so, yeah, I think having that cause that you rally around and reminding yourselves all the time is interesting. Now, our committee's in a really interesting position. I don't know if we'll have time on the call today, but we have learned so much about how government works, how planning laws work, how State Administrative Tribunal, the West Australian Planning Commission work. And we have systematically over time navigated our way through the approvals process of this project, so that like Jaquie said, we're like one step ahead, and we're feeling at the minute we're in a very strong position. There is a hearing on the 4th of November at the State Administrative Tribunal, because this, very, very quickly, this proposal was rejected by our local government.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
it was rejected by the West Australian Planning Commission, but then the developer and the Anglican Church have gone back into mediation, and we've had 9 mediations over over 2 years now, and it's just this ongoing kick the can down the road. And I feel like there's this intent from the developer that we'll forget about it, we'll burn out, and we'll give in, but we just have not. It's been almost the opposite, that the community is a little bit outraged that this property developer has had so many chances. And so, yeah, we'll talk a little bit about, I guess, later on in your questions, Elle, about...
Well, let's jump into it. That's sort of raised a really good point, which is whatever your cause is for your committee or organisation, in order for you to enact change, you have to understand what the levers for change are, because it's no good just shouting about it. You have to work out, what are the what is the ecosystem around you, and where is the actual points that you need to apply pressure to get, whether it's a community venue, and it's understanding where the avenues of funding and grant decisions come from, whether it's to do with getting permission to host a new event and how that can actually come to be, what all the local policies are around insurance and everything else. What's your advice for anyone who's maybe thinking of setting up a new organisation in identifying what those actual really, really important critical levers are that you need to push to get your change to happen? Because that can sometimes be a bit of a spaghetti junction to navigate. I'll go to you, Jaquie, first.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know when we set up the Puma to Go campaign, so there was a few core people who wanted to get, one man asked another woman, and then she asked more of us. So we knew we needed money. I contacted a publicist and someone else. I can't remember who the other, but the publicist was able to make sure that all our press releases looked amazing. Then we had a couple of events which brought a lot of attention on the media, but having that professional person being able to do that was integral. Then we had T-shirts and we had plans, and then different groups did different things. I wasn't one of the main organisers, but then there always the person who drove it was very interested in reading all the things that you're talking about, Jeremy, the legislation, the policies, the plans, what the city's plans were, or the lack of having a plan. But the passion is from the community, but there's still only ever a core of people, but everyone came along to the demonstrations or protest marches or whatever it is you want to call. Having a fundraising campaign as well, and having another group of people looking at that. From our setting up a new community group, like Building Bustleton's just setting up at the moment, there's passionate people and they do little things, but it is really hard to engage with the broader community when you're a broad group. Their value is to activate Bustleton. That's a really broad, that can be anything. And even though it's mostly around the CBD, it's also listening to what other people want to do. So if someone comes in and says, oh, I've got a good idea. Okay, great that you've got a good idea. How are you going to do that? How are you going to lead it? What do you need from us to help you do that? Because you can't take someone else's passion. And even with the Progress Association, and people come in with good ideas all the time, but we don't have time to do other people's ideas. If it's someone in our group, we'll go, oh yeah, well, what do you want us to do to help you? But you've got to have the driver.
Mm-hmm.
So that doesn't really answer your question about setting up a new group, because it all depends on what kind of group it is.
Mm. But it's helpful advice to say, the person with the passion that really wants to get this part of the project up and running is really the person that needs to take a bit of ownership over it, and then that you provide the advice and the learnings, but it needs to be them to do it, because otherwise it will just fizzle out.
It can't survive. Yeah.
Jeremy, any extra thoughts from you on sort of identifying where you can actually impact the change that you want to?
Yeah, definitely. So I think movements or community groups or committees, they're a little bit like a bus going down the road, and you've got people at the front who are navigating, sharing the driving of the bus, and then you've got people that get off the bus and the bus carries on. They leave the area, or they can't contribute anymore for whatever reason. Then new people come on, and it's this continual thing of new ideas and talent adding to the bus, and the bus gets a paint job and gets an engine upgrade, and it goes through iterations. And I think committees are a bit like that. The important thing is you just got to keep the bus going. So where we started, this Sapeth Hills thing has had kind of 3 really key big periods of its history. One, when it was formed in the 90s, and then it was successful and the issues went away. And then it reformed again in the mid to early 2000s. Once again, the project was basically defeated. And then in the last version of Sapeth Hills happened in December 2018. And so this massive proposal was put out for community consultation. They put it out for consultation right before Christmas, and then they closed the consultation period after New Year's. Which was a really bad time for anybody to be able to contribute. So what we did is there was a town hall meeting started by one of our local progress associations, and about 30 people turned up. Well, and then then the idea was, say, let's reinvigorate Sapeth Hills and get them to work on this issue. So then what happened was we managed to get, with the local shire of Mundaring, the feedback period extended by a couple of weeks, which was a real coup. Even so, a lot of people were camping or went on holidays in January, but it didn't matter. We ended up galvanizing the community we had 957 submissions written. And it was such, like, you normally get like a small handful, and we just, the Shire of Mundaring officers did not know what had hit them. It took them months to read through everybody's submissions, because a lot of these letters were 2, 3, 4 pages long of points, and every single one had to be addressed. So suddenly, like, boom, we had everyone taking notice, and there was this galvanizing point around the issues. We held our first rally. We had about 200 people turn up on a hot January day, and we really got going with our Facebook page. Facebook has been the one thing that's been an utter game changer for our committee at this period of time. In the previous periods of our committee, we didn't really have Facebook as effective as it is now. We use it for all our communications internally. We use it to communicate with the community. It's just been a free, wonderful resource. Now, a lot of people say, oh, Facebook is used by this generation and that generation and whatever. But at the core of it, if you look at the people that are stepping up for and getting involved in civic responsibility, the ones who are there turning up year after year after year are the people 40s plus. Now, we have had young people in their 20s come and help and assist, but they're no different to what I was at that age. The sense of commitment is not as deep. You're not a property owner yourself, so you're not as invested in the core issue. You don't know where you're going to be next year, let alone the next 5. Whereas when you're a bit older, you've got roots down, you're a bit more settled. So a whole host of reasons, demographically speaking, 40s plus, fantastic. I'll just talk about age a little bit more because on our committee, I'm probably one of the youngest. We have our secretary, Peter. I call him our Mr. Aaron Brockovich because he is such a clever guy, former engineer, has all the time in the world, and he reads all these boring legal documents for us and then helps translate them back to the committee. This is what this means. And, this thing contravenes 4 state planning policies. And we're like, oh my gosh, Peter, that's fantastic. You're a hero. And then we have Deborah, who used to read the Channel 7. Yeah, right. And then we have Deborah, who used to read the Channel 7 news, is just a gun on the media stuff, can write a letter that will make your face melt. And we just leverage Deborah. Every time we do a rally, our biggest rally had about 2,000 people. And we had Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, ABC all turn up with camera crews. And that really, really helped with the growth of this movement we've been able to have. As committee members, we have learned so much. It is insane. And it helps me in my work that I'm doing now with local government. I've learned so much. I had no clue previous to that. And so being a committee member, you learn a lot.
You learn a lot, and you also meet great people. I think that's the best part about being part of a committee or even part of a group, is that you're doing something to help other people most of the time, and that connection makes it fun, and you have something in common. But you also have differences of opinion, but it takes all types of people. So having a committee that has people that are interested in reading policy, but also people that are happy to go and clean a toilet or get the toilets or whatever. They're all important.
I think that raises, there's so many fabulous points from what you both shared there. One of the things that I think people don't do enough of when they're either running or forming committees or organizations is to take the time to get to know, firstly, what people's strengths and interests really are, so that you can allocate them work that's going to motivate them. We, maybe make assumptions about what people might be good at, or we don't ask. And like you say, Jeremy, if you've got someone that absolutely loves the detail and reading, that's fantastic. Like, let's give them the research role and get them working on that. Another thing that can cause, I think, friction in especially in organizations which are voluntary, is also not taking the time to get to know people's communication style as well. That can cause a lot of unnecessary friction that doesn't need to be there if you understand how people like to be communicated to and how they react. So I'll give an example actually from work, where there was a guy who never contributed in meetings and never spoke up, and I just thought he wasn't doing anything, which is and then I took the time to get to know him, and he was a person who felt that if he had nothing useful or like really solid to share, he wasn't going to share it. Whereas I'm the opposite, I'll talk for hours with waffle. And therefore, he was an incredibly diligent person who checked every detail and was an incredible asset to what we were doing. But I'm really glad I checked in with him on what his communication style was. Otherwise, I didn't know that was all going on outside of it. So sometimes on committees, or any group working situation, just taking half an hour of one session to go, let's just share a bit about, are you someone that always avoids conflict, or are you someone that feels like they contribute when they speak, or they feel like they contribute when they do go and do a job, or I just want to be involved in this perspective. And getting that, even if someone shares 5 minutes, it can be a game changer for how you work with them. Any other tips on from you guys on how to work with people in a really constructive and a way that means that people feel like, you know, they're giving their best and you're getting their best out of them.
I think what Jeremy was saying before is something that I strive for in the Progress Association, and that is to be a level leadership team. So rather than being the dominating voice at the table as a chair, I prefer to sit back, and the secretary may step up and run the meeting, or I only probably like your guy, I only say something if I think it's worth saying, because one, if you're saying something that's already been said, it just makes the meeting longer. But giving everyone the opportunity to have their say and discuss, and like I said, they don't always come from the same place, but talking about that and going, okay, well, we understand that we're going to have to agree to disagree. And in our case, if that involves writing a letter or not writing a letter, we'll just go, everyone can write their own letter, submit their own submission. The DPA doesn't have a position on this particular issue, so we just have to let it go. Rather than trying to beat it out, it's okay. There's not enough of us to make a decision on this, so we just let it go. But something that we don't do very well is engage our members, and that's something that we really want to work on, to try and be more representative of the broader community than just the 10 people that we've got in the room. We kind of think we're fairly normal, and we do represent different demographics, but we don't know. So that's something that we're working on. We need a communications person. So. Yeah.
And is that to do more sort of social media outreach type stuff as well?
Build our profile. Like we think everyone knows what we do, but apparently they don't. But they do know when we've got an event on, because we're out there pushing it. There's posters, there's a lot of activity on the socials, but just about our meetings, we're not necessarily promoting ourselves and our name.
Yeah. One of the things that also comes up when I talk to people on committees is, and this can happen. I think it happens in a lot of group working situations, is how you handle it when you do have a toxic personality that can actually dissuade people, make people feel like they can't contribute or belong. Do you have any examples of sort of how you sensitively handle that? Because that can be something where you've joined a committee and you suddenly you want to participate, but suddenly there's a reason for you not to go, and it can be a really hard thing to deal with.
It's really hard, and you have to hope that there's someone in your committee who is able to talk back channel to be the conduit. So you're taking in, trying to be a mediator, but not obviously, and speak to the other group of people, and then let's say a leader who isn't sharing information. No one wants to be the leader, as Jeremy has experienced. And you can have really good leaders who are old school, but the rest of the committee is like we're all communists. We want everyone to be equal. We want to know everything that's going on. But hopefully your group has someone who's able to speak and see fairly moderately both points of view and try and bring them in together. That's been my experience. It's a big weight as well. It's a big responsibility. It's not fair. The easy thing is to walk away, but if you really believe in the value of the group, you need to try and stick around and muddle through. I don't think, other than spending money on a facilitator, I don't. If you can't handle it, you have to step away. But if you're the sort of person that can reach out and try and listen to both sides, then my God, you're a diamond. It's very valuable.
Anything to add on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, this is probably the hardest question to answer, and it's also the hardest part of being involved in any committee. And it's fair to say we've had our own fair share of growing pains with those things. Fortunately, hasn't crashed the bus, and sometimes people step out for a little break, and sometimes I do get a phone call, someone saying they don't appreciate the style of another person or something like that. And you just sort of have a conversation, because it's tricky, because if you've got someone who's doing utterly incredible work and contributing amazingly well, but their style is putting others offside, it's a real tricky thing. So you just have to kind of be patiently nurturing through how that other person's feeling, and try to sound back how they feel, and see if you can address it in your own way. And the way you address it is, when you pick up on that behavior in a meeting, the way you react to it helps for that person to say, oh, the way that I spoke then wasn't well received, and it happened multiple times tonight. And then the person who's complained to you can see that they've been heard. So there's a lot of non-verbal stuff that happens, a lot of nuance. And yeah, look, unfortunately, these things happen. They happen in workplaces, they happen in families, and they're going to happen in committees too. And at the end of the day, that cause that you're rallying around is what, why you do what you do, what keeps everyone turning up and giving their time freely. So yeah, it's a real tricky one.
I think one of the things that can be some of this comes back to what is the culture of your committee, and what behaviours are acceptable and not acceptable. So some practical things that I've experienced in organisations where I felt there's a high degree of what I would call psychological safety, where everyone feels safe to be themselves and to share, but also to give and receive feedback if things aren't working, are firstly, setting out a very clear, what is our code? What is our code of behaviour in this organisation? What is accepted? What isn't? Setting out the fact that it's very you welcome feedback. Everyone should, if you're on this committee, you should be open to receiving feedback and giving feedback, and giving mechanisms for people to do that in a way that is safe. And I think providing those forums and channels for people to raise stuff if they feel uncomfortable, or if they feel like a particular personality is making them feel uncomfortable for whatever reason. And having a very open dialogue and saying, this is how we agree to communicate with each other, and this is what happens if you don't do this. To just sort of, it's all about, I think, building a safe and respectful culture of others. Easy to say, hard to do.
Yeah, I think it is really hard to do. I think it's also it's in the meeting, you're not calling out bad behaviour, but you're just sort of, sometimes we'll try and go, oh, come on, you don't really mean that, or actually, probably what you're saying, Jeremy, reiterating bad behaviour, or laughing at, not laughing, but showing a reaction so that the other person feels like, oh, I'm not the only person feeling like this. But sometimes it's about finding someone outside the committee who might be able to have a quiet conversation to the other person as well, if that's an opportunity. Sometimes it isn't. But it is trying to get, if you're a chair, trying to give everyone a chance to say their piece, so that it's because it rounds, if everyone's invited to say something, even if someone's sitting there and it's that quiet guy who doesn't want to say anything, I'll say, please, what do you think about this? And just bring it out to everyone so that everyone's saying something and it's not just the loudest person
that's
in
such
the
an
room.
important point to draw out all those voices. We've probably got time for a couple more questions. So there was a couple more bits I just wanted to sort of get your insights on. So firstly, so you have your monthly committee meetings, but how do you as a group stay in touch between meetings? How do you communicate and check in on initiatives and projects that are happening? Is it, you know, what happens sort of in between the meetings?
A lot of emails. Thank God for email. Texts, and also quick catch-ups on specific projects or parts of projects.
Awesome. Jeremy,
Yeah, for us, we use... So go ahead.
Yes, sorry, I was saying.
I was just going to say we use Facebook Messenger a lot. The beauty of Facebook Messenger is the whole leadership group is on there. And it means that there's no secret squirrels, that everyone's across. And the people who are present but they're not turning up so much are still in the loop. And I think that's really important. The nice thing about using Facebook Messenger for me is that I partition my workday completely away from, I don't even look at it when I've got other things on. And email, look, we have to send emails around sometimes. Certainly the core committee, there's just email stuff we've got to share, but certainly proofreading of letters happens on email more. But yeah, I like the messenger because it's, we just get everyone gets so many emails these days. So partitioning it to this other whole system of communication is really good.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you had some kind of, you know, those groups, what are they like on Teams or something like that? I'm going, that's very, very advanced, but yeah, different. Yes, I think some of the subcommittees have different formats. I know not everyone's on Messenger with our group, so it's actively not on social media platforms.
Oh, well, Jaquie,
so that has made it
a tip for you is you don't have to be on Facebook to use Messenger.
Yeah. They just
Sometimes any interaction with the metaverse is not for some people. I do understand that. All right, so firstly, so we're just sort of coming to the end of our chat, and I've written heaps of notes, so thank you for all the insights. We'll just, if anyone on the call who's listening has any questions about something they particularly want to dive into, please just drop on the chat or in the questions panel. And we'll try and get through those. Just while a few questions are coming through, I'd love to know sort of if there's one piece of advice you can give to someone on a committee about either managing that committee or making it productive, or ensuring that you're staying true to your mission or cause. What would that be? I'll go to Jeremy first.
Look, for me, it comes down to just having that flat structure. I think it really works incredibly well with committees, and that it's not just one captain of the boat. There's, there is a few captains who make decisions together, and I think that's good. I think that's okay, and I believe it works well. I also believe that approach takes ego out of conversation. And just to circle back maybe a little bit to that previous topic about difficulties between committee members, usually these things all come down to ego. We all have egos, and we're all on a journey with how well we can pause and listen to ourselves versus being completely led by the ego. And the people who are completely led by the ego, we don't have any of them in our group, and that really helps. I think if you had that, it would result in some toxic culture. So, look, to reiterate, I just think, a nice, simple, flat structure. I also think a platform to communicate in that, I thought of us using Slack at one point, but I use Slack now so heavily for work that would be a distraction. And I don't want that distraction. I want that partitioning to occur. And so I'm quite strict with myself on the time of day that I give thought and I give attention to the Sapeth Hill stuff. Mm. So yeah, partitioning, flat committee structure. Yeah, I think that works really, really well. So.
Thank you. Jaquie, I'll pass to you, and then we've got a question from Connie. If Jeremy, you want to have a quick read of that and have a think.
I think the flat committee structure is really the best way to go, and I think you're right on with the ego. It's always about, but in a toxic environment, I think that everyone has a place, has to participate. And if you have a leader who is egocentric, then someone else has to try and balance that out and get everyone around the table talking, because that's the only way to bring it, to make them aware of the fact that other people do have opinions and valuable opinions coming from different places. So that's been my experience in that kind of thing.
Jaquie. So a question from Connie. Do you have any advice for targeting new committee members from outside your area of work? We're an arts trust and are hoping to attract members from outside the arts sphere who are able to bring something new to the table. Jeremy, anything to jump in with here?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things to do would be just network. And there's a couple of ways. That's an easy thing to say, but how do you do that? So one of the tips is just jump on Eventbrite, jump on Meetup, those websites, and they publicize things that they have related to your area of interest, where there could be some particular arts event you actually didn't know about. And so it's free to attend. You turn up and invariably there's a, hey, who are you? Where are you from? And then you start to tell your story. So networking is a really big thing, in-person networking, which thankfully we can now do again.
Especially for technical people as well. There's so many technical meetups. If you're looking for web developers or social media experts, go to a meetup that is for that community of interest, and say that you're looking for volunteers or people to get stuck in and get experience. A lot of young people will be looking for a project to say that they've done to put on their CV, so that can be a way to recruit them.
Yep.
Depending on what kind of person you're looking for, we have had really good people with not the arts-based skills that we're looking for, like treasurers, or mostly treasurers, by having adverts in the local paper. That's the sort of thing that they go to.
Oh, that's
that
smart.
I think
with a good job description about what you do, then you'll find someone who's interested in arts, isn't an artist, but has a skill that you're looking for, same as the legal system.
And Jaquie speaks with a degree of authority on this, having, owns a pottery studio in down south as well. So, but look, one of the things that really helped our group get new members was when we held an event. For us, what an event was a community rally. And now when you hold a community rally, suddenly you have to start, the to-do list gets put together by the committee, right? So we need banners. We need signage. We need a nurse on duty at the rally. We need stall holders. We need people to take photos and video and whatnot. We need, there's just this list of jobs is massive. And funnily enough, what happens when you put something out there like this, you start to attract volunteers, go, yeah, I can do that. Or such and such as son or daughter or partner suddenly is stepping in, and you get whole family members involved. But then the event itself, with its showcase, its speakers, its purpose, also starts to attract people. Go, I'm really aligned to what's being said here. They come up and approach, go, hey, this is what I do. I've got these skills in X, Y, Z. Is there any way I can help? And that most of our growth has come through those events, funnily enough, because events are inspiring. So.
So we're at the top of the hour. That's absolutely flown by. Thank you so much for all the insights that you've shared. We'll try and distill them and get them sent out at some point, because I think there's a lot here just that will help people on their own committees, and talked a range of things around managing people, getting people to show up, getting people to participate, and there's just heaps of stuff in here. So thank you so much, Jaquie and Jeremy, for sharing your experience.
Sorry, late.
No. We have our last community venue learning series. So I'll just flick back to the slides. I think it's coming up November the 16th for 2023. Little plug that we have a Facebook group. So if you're interested in networking and meeting people from other community venues across the world, then please join that. We share lots and lots of resources in there as well. And if we haven't finalized the topic for the last one of the year, but if you have any ideas, please just drop them on the chat. We'd love to hear what you'd like us to cover, and we'll go and source an expert in that space, just like we've done today. So please, just drop your ideas in the chat. And thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks again, especially to Jaquie for dialing in. Brilliant. See you on the next one.
Thanks for having us. And honestly, I just have to say, I got a SpacetoCo a message from someone saying, "Oh, can I use the hall on Sunday for an hour? If do I have to book it?" And I went, "Go and have a look on the website and see if it's available. If it's not if it's available, yes, you can do it. Otherwise, I would have just been going." Oh.
Yay! I'm back.
Thank you.
Oh, awesome.
All right.
See you, Jaquie.
Thank you.
All right.